You've got 503 and you're live, and there's nobody in the waiting room.
Thank you. So we can begin this meeting, the March 7 meeting of the Legislative Committee. And I'll start by calling roll. John Rafter, I'm here. Luke? Here. And David? Here. All right. And our first item is approving the minutes from the last meeting. And does anyone have any desire to modify those so they're good to go? Correct?
I had no concern.
Okay. So we're good there. And the public here for public comment. And we'll immediately to the one topic or two topics, tax laws. So we have copies, you have copies in front of you. Okay, the first issue is any thoughts or comments from either the committee members or me?
Couple of thoughts. One question I have is, does it say anywhere in the local law finally that it was sunsetted? Like, where is it listed as being sunsetted? You know, Len, since you looked at that.
Specifically, no, but I can just tell you what our city attorney said. So the first one that you're looking at, number 3 of 2013, that is regarding new construction or substantially remodeled, but must include 20% for low-income housing.
Right.
And so, according to our city attorney, he questioned the zones and that there was no change in the zones. There was no change there. And then it was just that he had found that it was the second thing is that the sunset date, which was set on June 15th, 2015.
So as of June 15th, 2015, it was no longer active.
That's correct.
Just wondering, if we decide to do this again, how do we make it so it does not sunset?
You just don't put the date in, and that's why Dave Mersey put it this way. It's in front of you. There is no sunset clause. So when you adopt this, you'll be adopting, and I don't know what the number is going to be of 22. But the verbiage is exactly the same. So then now we're on the clause with no sunset clause. If we need to do it later on, we can amend it.
The next question I have then is, did we benefit from these? Especially, did we benefit from number 3 in any way?
I don't know even how to research from 2015 to 2013 what projects, if any, were done and benefited from this. But I know that there are projects in my ward and in the Center City ward. I think you mentioned it, I'd rather not put out the address. There's people that are now talking about senior housing. And these are the types of incentives that we should have in place. That atmosphere.
When is the housing? Has the housing commission had a chance to look at these yet?
Yeah, this is a legislative issue. So on that, I went to the housing commission meeting last week and was very pleasantly surprised. Joan Fox brought up, she had done her own homework and found 40 lots, 1 acre lots in the city going on. And I was amazed. And Pete said he did his homework, and Pete said he had also found several lots available. So getting these opportunities, incentives in place might incentivize our local builders and or recruit builders to come and start putting up housing. Even if, because of the topography, we are the city of the hills, that we're only able to use 20 of those lots, we might be able to put up 2 homes per 1 acre and, or more, depending on it. And so I don't know, I think that's kind of exciting to have that opportunity for new housing. I'm one of the 6 houses that have been built in the last, I built mine 17 years ago. I don't, that's how my new housing at the city going on.
Looks like Russ Southern's house.
Russ is another one.
Yeah.
You got the gate shirts down, but that's multi-unit, but not single family. And then that's what the other local law is that would be number 4, 2013, and that is designed specifically for newly constructed primary residential property within the city, purchased by one or more persons. Each of them was a first-time homebuyer. So that was obviously trying to incentivize that group of folks.
Now, the first time home buyer, that was not just new construction though, that was also rehab too, wasn't it?
According to my notes and reading this stuff.
Yes, substantial rehabilitation. I think it was included.
I'm reading from section 1 of the local law. But either way, that would be good also, if we're substantially rehabilitating. Since we have vacant homes.
Yeah, I think it falls under 1 or 2B potentially. A first time home buyer who either is part of the contract to sell the primary residential property or who enters into a written contract within 90 days after closing of the sale of the primary residence for reconstruction, alteration, or improvements. So if I remember right, it was for either it's for purposes of this section, the terms reconstruction, alteration, and improvement shall not include ordinary maintenance and repairs. It may be that some of these questions may have to go to Dave Merzick to answer.
Well, he's the one that did this. I did not author this, but actually, David, I think you bring up a good point, because I'm just looking at what Carrie just gave me. I'm looking at local law number 3 of 2013.
If I remember this correctly, that's what it was for, but at the time when we were thinking more of the rehab, less of the new construction, just because we just were under the impression there weren't many places to build within the city.
Right.
And it may be just a thing that we want to ask Dave Merzick if we push these forward to the council, if we decide to do that, for him to clarify, because that way we can clarify it to constituents. We've had various first-time home buyer programs over the years.
Correct.
That
But that was for the loans, though, right?
Yeah. This was the tax abatement, which was actually the first one we'd ever done. The only other question I had, John, for this was actually on 3, and I'm thinking that
Which of these?
It'd be the first one.
the first one. The only concern I have, and it's very possible it was answered years ago, I just don't remember, was does it allow a current apartment complex to allow itself just not to do any maintenance for years, and then to come forward and say, well, I want to get a tax abatement by doing, like, we have to do major reconstruction here. Like, do we need a more of a definition of what's regular maintenance or something? And it may be that we don't need it since the term substantial rehab is in here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I may just want to ask Dave Merzick about that.
Right, and then what's nice about both of these tax incentives is that it requires those that are reaping the benefit, they have to keep paperwork. and city staff, and they're gonna be communicating back and forth every single year. So there's a check and balance, which I think is important.
Who? Sorry, I feel like I'm monopolizing questions, but
No, please.
my other question would be, who within the city has to maintain our side of this? And this goes back to my previous question, like how often were these used? Like how much extra work do we expect from this? It may be that this period of time is very different than 2013, where there wasn't a lot happening, and now there's a lot happening.
So what was, you said 6 units have been built in the past 17 years, approximately?
Approximately. It's not a lot.
Well, that's only one of them. I was thinking of if you're factoring in both of these, where one is.
Oh, no, that's just new houses. I did not receive any tax incentives from when I built my house. I don't want you to think that at all.
No, I don't think anybody was thinking that.
No,
He was referring to that one. I was actually referring more to the one regarding, was it local law 3?
Right, substantially rehabilitating.
Yeah.
Right.
Like how much, I mean, it could be, we could have a lot of work from this. We just need to be prepared for that, but I don't know.
So the
how
tax
much work
assessor,
we
it's in the language, dude, it's, the application talks about the commission and assessor, number 4 is there.
Which one are we on, local law 3?
Yes. The local law number 3, 2013.
And under 4, okay.
And also understand that I still need to go before the school board to make sure that they didn't sunset it also.
Do we need to have both of these?
Well, this puts that package back together that you approved of in 2013. There were 6 of them that you approved.
Right, but I don't remember the school board having to be involved in this.
The way it's been explained to me by both tax assessors and our attorney is that our legislative body will approve this. And then for these 2, we have to visit with and it'll be the city attorney visit with the school board.
So they could be adopted, by them, but we can adopt it and they could say no.
Correct, absolutely.
And yeah, so, but that would be, if they adopt it, it would be a significant benefit for somebody that's looking to do major construction or reconstruction.
You know, the hope here is that we are creating an opportunity for people that want to invest here.
Do we have the ability to adjust these local laws, or would this entire local law would have to be adjusted at the state level if we were going to adjust it? So let's say taking local law number 3, if we wanted to tweak the exemptions, like 1 through 12 is 100% exempt. Years 13 and 14 is 80% exempt, and so on and so on. If we wanted to adjust that, do we have the ability to, or would that have to go through the state legislature?
Correct. We're only mirroring
Yeah.
New York State real property tax law. We're adopting third tax law.
Yeah. Well, John, my thought is we can, like, regardless of whether we benefited from it before, I mean, I think we're in a better position now to actually benefit from it than we were in 2013. But let's say we don't decide to do this. There will be plenty of other places that are. And those communities are just going to reap the benefits, and we are not. So that's just my thought. I'm done. I feel like I've been talking the whole time.
I think it's just one part on top of what we really need to do to create an exciting atmosphere in Oneonta. This is just one level.
So that's why we did it before.
We need to do as much as we can to create that excitement, but this isn't the end all. This one thing is not gonna change it all. It's definitely gonna help.
Just a broad question. What can go wrong with this?
I think the number one thing would be local law number 3 with the percentages of exemption. I think people that, I think it's very easy for people to be very negative about it and say you're giving away our money, which that's not the case. It means that in years 1 through 12, nothing changes for all of us. We start benefiting in years 13, and I think we're going to have to be, if we decide to do this, we have to be ready to say, think of everybody's taxes as a big pizza or pie, whichever you like better, and nothing changes with how that's divvied up until year 13 or 14, and then the pieces get a little bit smaller, and you have to pay a little less in theory. So other than that, I can't. That's what I've been trying to think. Is like, what's the negative of this?
Well,
That I missed last time, and I
Is there
don't know
any-
what it is.
Monitoring, how would the monitoring to identify any abuse or, for example, maximum of 3 years, if something is identified as in the process of being during construction or in substantial rehabilitation, there's a 3-year exemption of 100%. What if there's progress not being made, or there's something where it seems to be that the taxes are not being addressed because it's under the umbrella of this law, but there's not very much going on regarding it?
Well, I'm assuming it's going to have to be, somebody's going to have to be monitoring it. I would
Yeah.
assume it would be the assessor and code office. But I don't know if that means there's supposed to be other people in City Hall that are going to have to be involved in this too, because it could turn out to be a lot of work. But as Gary always said, like, I guess that would be a good thing if there's a lot of work to be done with it. So, yeah.
The a lot of work, again, when would an abuse or of under this law become apparent? Who would be looking at that?
I think David's absolutely right. It's the code enforcement officer. They continually do visits through the construction process.
Which they do already.
They do it already, and they're the ones, the clock is going with them. And so a contractor would be foolish to play around with a 3-year envelope. I mean, short of having COVID happen again, the contractor better be spot on, because that's a huge tax benefit to them.
I mean, we've had, well, here's the other thing too, John. This isn't the first time we've had tax exemptions with big projects. And this, I look at number 3, is they're going to be moderates to large size projects. So we've been doing that for years, and it's always been monitored actually by the assessor, code, and actually our finance office is monitoring. Because I remember years ago going in there and Meg bringing out the book and showing me the lists of projects and what their exemptions were and how long they had it left and so on. So.
Can I speak to them? Just so you know, part of the adopted budget, there is what's called the Assessor Report, which lists all of the exempt categories and the number of properties in the assessed values. And all of them have to tie into the New York State law. So to know how many benefit between 13 and 16, we can go back to those reports and see how many properties were listed under this, if any. And that's how we would be able to tell. I could go back to those roles and figure out who got that exemption, and I could give you a report
Mhm.
to tell you if anybody actually benefited from it.
If we pass this today on to the council for a final discussion, it would be, not that I want to give you more work, Ginny, but if you could bring a number to us to give us an idea of what we benefited, and even if it was 2 or 1 back then, there was an awful lot less happening in the city then. I think that would just give us a baseline to go.
Could I
from.
share my concerns?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I just have a couple of concerns. I have the same concern as David with the 12 years. That's a very long period. Also, if the project is eligible for one of the CDBG grants, I would like to know if they're eligible for the CDBG grant and this. I do not know the law well enough to know if they would fall under both, because I think that would be they would be benefiting from different sources, and I'm not, I just don't know the law well enough to know if they can do both. Also, if there is a pilot agreement attached to the project, again, how does that conflict with these 2 local laws? And also, just so you know, it's been a very long time since we have done homeowner loans. In many, I want to say the last 5 to 6 years, they've been all grants. So, so we have very little loan activity except for economic development, except for the business, what we call the economic development. But as far as homeowners, it's all been grants in the most recent years. So I just wanted to share those concerns just so we can make sure we have all our ducks in a row and make sure how the chain reaction affects different situations.
I mean, I could make a big assumption here that it's going to be one or the other. They can't get a pilot or this. I don't know about the CDBG grant though.
Yeah.
It's a number 6 on number 3, 2013, number 6. Section 421, section 421C. Those are when you're applying for state one grant.
Oh, okay, that's what that was. Well, there's the answer for the grant. And again, I would just say that this is essentially a pilot agreement that
Mhm.
that we would be adopting forever, I suppose.
Well, again, we can always amend it if we need to down the road.
Well, it sounds like if it's written by the state legislature, the only way to amend it is to the state. If we want to, we can either have it or we can't, or we don't.
Correct.
So we can waive it if we wanted to.
Again, we could put another one out with a sunset clause if we want. And given that we're all trying to scratch our brains and think of different projects that may have happened between 2013 and 2015,
Mhm.
and really aren't coming up with anything, tells me that it really didn't.
Len, I'm sorry, mine goes from 5 to 7. I don't have number 6 printed here in the printout.
Number 6.
Yep, when you said number 6 covers the grant,
Um,
mine goes from 5 to 7.
You can just read it.
The page is
Oh.
printed out of order from the state website, so it may be on a different page.
Number 6.
Yes.
Page 6.
Right, number 6.
Okay, thank you.
When did the skill set come? Remember what year?
12.
I was gonna say, I think the pilot started in 2013, I think.
So they didn't benefit from this at all. They went with pilot. I think that's the only large apartment style, like multiple dwelling project we've had, if I remember right.
We had the Brzez
Yeah.
building and, the Plugo buildings. We had Brzez.
Yeah,
He did Brzez, he did
wasn't that done? by the-
Stevenson's, and he did Deep Street.
Stevens, he's just did in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
But Received, I thought was done before 2013.
yeah.
But he-
But he received his tax incentives directly from the state.
Correct. And you're right, he was done before,
Yeah,
because I retired in 15. And he was on one project.
But I can go back to those years. I'll check 13 through 16 and see if any of those exemptions were on the tax roll.
okay.
But either way, actually, I like the way that you surmised it, is that if we don't do it and other communities do it.
Yeah.
We're all fighting for those people coming out of the urban areas right now. So,
Well, it's also a way to improve our housing stock. And absolutely.
I don't think you guys understand, but there is a requirement that at least 20% of the units shall be affordable to individuals of lower moderate income. That needs to be tracked by the city. We need to establish a program to monitor this. That I'm not sure that we can implement that.
Right, and then, which means we would be having to look at the tax returns and things like that, so that would be an ongoing.
Who would be responsible for that? Then? Are we correct in who we're guessing would be responsible?
Well, I know for certain exemptions, the assessor would take all of the paperwork. We would have to check now with our new contract with the county to see how they're handling it at the county level and if they would take that on for the city portion.
Well,
Number 7, it says the city shall develop an income monitoring compliance plan to meet criteria paragraph C. Yeah. So I think internally we would have to add that, similar to.
well,
Are there other questions, Luke?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I shared my really only concern is the time period, but I'll mull it over a little bit more if I have any more questions on it. If we bring it to council, but I share the same concerns as Ginny. Took me a long time, but it's if we're the only community that's not offering this, then it makes us a lot less appealing.
typical pilot agreements are about 20 years. So it's hard to, sometimes it's hard to stomach it, but, and sometimes the 20 years is just divvied up differently, where it's like a step down. You have a few years exactly the same, and then another step down for a few years, and it's all equal. So this one is, it's that first 12 that's, and actually in a way it's first 15, or could be first 15.
Yeah, because the period is.
Yeah.
Well, remember, these are folks that are privately investing, and it's in their best interest to get the project up and running, because that's where they start making return on their investment.
No, I know, I think it's just sticker shock.
There's no incentive whatsoever to drag this thing out.
I have no more questions, sure.
Would you, are we willing to move this up to council?
Both of them.
Okay. I agree. So that concludes the discussion based on the agenda. Anything else we need to talk about?
Nothing on my list.
Okay.
Which teachers?